Ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll get started if you have a chance to grab your final bit of sugar and caffeine and take a seat. I want to welcome you all to the Woodrow Wilson Center. My name is Jeff DeBelko. I have the good fortune of directing our Environmental Change and Security Program and coordinating our Global Health Initiative. And it is a distinct pleasure to welcome you all today for another meeting in our HELPS project series, Health, Environment, Livelihoods, Population, and Security, a program that we are in the second year of with support by USAID's Office of Population and Reproductive Health. And under that rubric, we tackle a lot of topics, one of which is questions of gender and particularly gender-based violence, in that, as you can see by the name of HELPS, we're interested in both the security questions, the gender questions, the health questions. And so this topic, unfortunately, brings those things together. As we all know, Haiti is a place that has challenges in all these areas. And so it is a country and a part of the world that we have had the opportunity to have a number of conversations where we can learn from practitioners, we can learn from scholars, something that we try to do and really is the mission here at the Wilson Center, the former memorial to Wilson, a nonpartisan, non-advocacy forum to bring the worlds of scholarship and policy together, reflecting his legacy as the only president to have a PhD. So it is fitting that we can have this conversation here, and it's a privilege to have you all join us in our distinguished lineup of speakers. I will introduce the three of them in the order that they will speak. I'll keep it brief because you have fuller bios in front of you, and so we maximize the amount of time for them to speak. I should also say we're webcasting this session, and the video will be archived, so you will have the opportunity to point other colleagues who are not here in the room with us today to the session and to the Wilson Center website and to our blog, New Security Beat, where we'll have write-ups of this. If you are watching online, you can open the PDFs of the presentations and follow along, making it easier for you to see there online. And so I will go straight to our speaker bios. We have a distinguished panel for our topic of addressing gender-based violence across humanitarian development in Haiti. Amanda Klasing is a researcher in the Women's Rights Division of Human Rights Watch, somebody who's worked on a broad range of these issues in a number of places in Latin America as well as South Asia. She'll kick us off with perspective from on the ground. Leora Ward is the Women's Protection and Empowerment Technical Advisor for International Rescue Committee, where she has a portfolio that means a lot of travel, judging by the countries that she's covering. And she too can talk to questions of a variety of interventions on the ground and how those things are working in this particular setting. And then finally, Emily Jacobi is the Executive Director and Founder of Digital Democracy, and somebody who will talk to us about mobile technology and tackling these challenges. And so we very much look forward to this panel. I'll be quiet, pull up the slides, and you can use that, or you can just tell me to advance it either way that you guys prefer, and we'll go from there. So, Amanda, the floor is yours, and if I pick up the right one here, we can get started. Yeah.
I had a preview of some of the other slides of the other panelists, and mine are not as colorful, so I apologize in advance. Thank you so much for the introduction, and also I'm very happy to be on the panel with Emily and with Leora. So I wanted to start by, first of all, Nobody Remembers Us is the title of a report that Human Rights Watch released in late August of this year. It was a report on women and girls' access to reproductive and maternal care in the camps in post-earthquake Haiti. It looked at a variety of issues, including gender-based violence and transactional sex, which is an issue that is increasingly of concern in Haiti. The title of Nobody Remembers Us was taken from an interview with a woman that was living in a camp in front of the presidential palace, in fact. And she told us, "We live in this camp in the dirt, and nobody remembers us." And we felt like this was a really important and telling quotation, because in many cases this in many ways, this is true. The perspective of women has not necessarily been taken into account in post-earthquake Haiti, either in the recovery or in the reconstruction. Before I get started in talking more about that, I'd like to give a little bit of background on gender-based violence in Haiti prior to the earthquake, because I think this is incredibly important. We have to remember the earthquake didn't happen in a bubble. It happened in a place that already had a lot of problems with security, extreme poverty, and with instability. So various regimes in Haiti have used sexual violence as a tool of repression. We know for a fact that in the 1991 to 93 de facto regime, gender-based violence, rape was used against supporters of Aristide. This was documented both by Human Rights Watch and by other organizations. It was used in particularly graphic and horrible ways, where sons of Aristide supporters were forced to rape their sisters or their mothers in front of family members. Other security forces would rape women that were supportive of the Aristide government. And this actually, we believe, had a history in the sexual violence used as repression in the Duvalier regime. Although we don't have the same documentation of rapes that occurred under the Duvalier regime, we have a lot of anecdotal evidence that gender-based violence, particular forms of violence used against women because they were women, was used by the Tantan Makut and by other security forces under the Duvalier regime. So in fact, there is a history and a context for sexual violence in Haiti that is important to remember. In the political conflicts after the coup or the removal of Aristide, or the departure of Aristide in 2004, there was also a considerable amount of sexual violence that occurred in Port-au-Prince particularly. And at that time, the UN estimated that up to 50% of the girls living in conflict zones were in fact victims of rape or sexual violence. And there was widespread reports of gang rape or collective rape, which is something we would see later in post-earthquake Haiti. There was an extensive survey conducted and published in The Lancet, which is a medical journal, that found that 3.1% of women and girls in the sample, or an estimated 35,000 if extrapolated out to the population, were sexually assaulted from February 2004 to December 2006. There were some critiques of the methodology used in that survey, but after considerable discussion and debate, it seems that the methodology was in fact sound. And also, we have the DHS survey from 2005 and 2006 that gave us a little bit of understanding of domestic violence throughout Haiti, not just in Port-au-Prince. 25% of Haitian women and girls reported being victims of physical violence at least once since the age of 15, and 16% had reported experiencing violence in the 12 months prior to the survey. Looking at sexual violence in particular, in Port-au-Prince metropolitan area, almost 10% of women reported experiencing sexual violence. We also had a lot of information about gender-based violence prior to the earthquake and its impact on health in Haiti. So a 2000 study found a correlation between the experience of spousal abuse and poor reproductive health outcomes. Of course, this is not just sexual violence, but gender-based violence and domestic violence more broadly. Poor reproductive health outcomes included miscarriages, STIs, and other type of reproductive concerns. The odds of a terminated pregnancy were significantly higher for women who reported intimate partner violence. Again, terminated pregnancy has a broad meaning. It means abortion, I'm sorry, I don't have the actual definition here, but a 2009 study of youth found that sexual violence significantly increased the risk factor for pregnancy, which of course is of concern and something that we found in post-earthquake Haiti as well. And Amnesty International published a report in 2008 that found 20% of girls seeking treatment for rape at a medical facility in Port-au-Prince became pregnant. So the health impact of GBV prior to the earthquake was very clear. One of the things that we've struggled with, One of the things that we struggled with in preparing our report was the lack of information on solid GBV data after the earthquake. And by solid, I mean based on a widespread sample that provided us a good picture of the landscape more broadly rather than camp by camp. That was not provided by the humanitarian response, the UN, or the government. It was just something that wasn't prepared or provided. So we don't know how many rapes actually occurred immediately after the earthquake or even in the year to 18 months after the earthquake. So instead, there were many groups that tried to fill that gap, that data gap, and provided data from a variety of sources. Small Arms Survey in University of Michigan did a survey similar to the survey that was done in 2004 and 2006 in the post-conflict period. They found at approximately 3% of the sample, or about the same number as the post-conflict period of 2004 to 2006, identified themselves as victims of sexual assault in the first 3 months after the earthquake. Again, extrapolating that out to the larger population, that could be as high as 35,000 or more. There was a Harvard study done in Parc Jean-Marie Vincent, which, for those of you that are familiar with Parc Jean-Marie Vincent, it's identified as a very violent camp. It's quite large. At this time, I believe it's down to 50,000, but at the height, it was around 60,000 people. And they found that 4.1% of survey respondents knew someone or they had themselves been had forced sex. And the definition of forced sex is slightly different. The definition that they used may not actually correlate to the criminal definition of rape, but in fact, for purposes of gender-based violence, it's important to look at these numbers. UNFPA tried to also conduct a broad survey, and they found about 1% of women reported sexual violence, or 1.7% of 20 to 24-year-olds. So that's some of the data that we had from kind of broad studies. We had some organizations that provided either data from smaller scale studies. NYU Center for Human Rights and Global Justice did a random sampling of about 4 camps and found that 9% of respondents had reported forced sex. They use a similar methodology to the Harvard study in Jean-Marie Vincent. SOFA reported treating 718 women and girls for gender-based violence at 6 months after the earthquake, and 114 were victims of rape. And the grassroots group COFAVIV reported helping over 640 victims of rape in the year after the earthquake. So without broader understanding of the data and the entire landscape, we have to fill in the gaps with this information. Now, the question of whether or not there's been an increase in gender-based violence has been something that has been discussed pretty extensively. And there's no broad-based data prior to the earthquake and no broad-based data after the earthquake to say yes or no that there's been an absolute increase in gender-based violence. But I think what we need to remember and carry with us is that we all know what the vulnerabilities are that lead to gender-based violence, and these vulnerabilities have increased significantly for the women and girls living in camps, displacement camps, or even living with relatives or friends after the earthquake. And so their individual vulnerability for gender-based violence has increased, and so the concern and the response should reflect that. This data also tells us that there was significant health impact brought on by gender-based violence. SOFA reported that 6.3% of the rapes that they treated resulted in pregnancy. CAVAS is a small grassroots group that works in a particularly violent part of Port-au-Prince, and out of the number of rapes that they recorded, 20% had resulted in pregnancy. And a number of the women and girls that we interviewed for our report, which was primarily focused on access to reproductive and maternal care, so we weren't seeking out victims of violence, but in fact, during the course of interviews, found various cases of violence. This number is probably underreported because of that, but we did find several women and girls that reported pregnancy due to rape, and 3 of these were adolescent girls aged 14 to 15. So what this tells us about the post-earthquake response to gender-based violence, particularly the numbers of rapes that I just discussed, a number of pregnancies that I just discussed, is that post-rape medical care is not available and accessible to many of the women that need it, women and girls, I should say, that need it. And there are a variety of reasons based on our research that this might be true. But 2 of the primary reasons for not accessing post-rape care based on the research that we conducted was the lack of information and the shame that women and girls associate with rape. And I think these are two important things to keep in consideration because my co-panelists will discuss their responses and some of the work that they're doing to address these issues, but these types of concerns require a broad-based approach. So it's not enough to set up the post-rape care facilities in either public medical facilities or private medical facilities. There has to be additional outreach and additional work done to ensure that women and girls have access to post-rape medical care. Another issue that I have not highlighted with data, and I actually don't have the supporting information to provide, is concern about increase in STIs associated with rape if post-rape care is not accessed in a timely manner. And so we don't have that information if there's been an increase in HIV, AIDS, or other STI, but it is an increasing concern if we have this number of pregnancies resulting from rape that there might be also transfer of STIs. I want to give a broader context to the medical situation for women and girls in post-earthquake Haiti to also help us understand this information. In the displacement camps after the earthquake, UNFPA found that the rate of pregnancy in the camps was 300% higher than what the rate of pregnancy had been in urban areas in Haiti prior to the earthquake. So there were 3 times as many women pregnant in the camps than if they had been living in an urban area prior to the earthquake. So access to post-rape medical care is not the only concern that women and girls have. They are concerned they don't have access to the medical care that they need on a day-to-day basis. Understanding the obstacles to post-rape care, I want to put some context to this. Prior to the quake, 26% of women who experienced sexual violence reported that they sought assistance from their own relatives. And mothers were the single most important source of help, followed by friends and neighbors. And only 2% of survivors reported seeking assistance from police, lawyers, or doctors. And what we found, particularly in the women and girls that had experienced sexual violence that resulted in pregnancy, is that these social networks had been damaged or destroyed by the quake. So the 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds that we spoke to that had become pregnant from rape had actually lost family members that could have provided that support and helped them access the post-rape care, would have known what to do. Many women and girls no longer attended the same church that they had previously attended, so their faith community was no longer accessible to them. Adolescent girls no longer were able to go to the schools where they had built relationships, trust relationships with teachers or other administrators. So the destruction of social networks is an important thing to recognize in addressing gender-based violence after the earthquake, because we really, it's not enough to create like I said, the centers for treating women and girls after rape. We have to actually figure out how we can ensure that women and girls have access to them. And an important other aspect that I discussed briefly was the general lack of information. So women and girls didn't just lack information on how to access post-rape care. There was a general lack of information that pervaded all aspects of the lives of women and girls displaced by the earthquake, including knowing where to go to access post-rape care. But I want to talk about lack of information more broadly because I think it's an important component to where we go now in development in Haiti and reconstruction in Haiti as far as including women and girls and having a gender perspective. So this lack of information has an impact on a wide variety of rights for women and girls. They don't know what health services are available. Many women and girls reported not actually understanding issues related to their own health. We found a considerable number of women that didn't understand information that was related to them about how to recognize signs of labor, when to go to the hospital if there was an obstructed labor, or if there was an emergency. Very basic information was not relayed to them in a way that was culturally sensitive or in a way that they could understand and act upon. Women and girls did not know how to participate in decision-making. This included from the community level all the way to the national level. There were confusion about how to participate in elections, confusion on how to participate in committees within the camps, confusion just about any sort of avenue to participation. Women and girls reported lacking any information on plans for the camps where they lived. We interviewed camp members from one of the 6 camps that was slated for closing by the Martelli government, by their 6-camp plan. And women and girls knew that the camp was slated to be closed, but had no further information on this. They couldn't tell us who to contact if they had any concerns. They didn't know exactly when they would be dislocated. They didn't know how that would happen. They didn't know what their rights were involving this removal from the camp. And many women and girls, or all women and girls, I would almost go so far to say, lacked information on the plans for the reconstruction of their city and their country. And this is increasingly a concern when there are so few women in political positions in Haiti as well. And an important aspect of lack of information from a human rights-based perspective is that women and girls lack the information to seek accountability, either for the services provided, accountability when security forces didn't, UNPOL, HMP didn't provide the security that they needed to protect them from harm, accountability for any other issue. They just didn't have the information they needed, who to contact, what the process was, what their rights were in this regard. And they also didn't know who to report to seek redress for problems, even in their camp associated with sanitation, with water, with any other issues in their day-to-day life. So I'm going to leave it at that as far as the context, and I want to talk about some of our recommendations for moving forward. We have about 500,000 people that are continuing to live in the camps still, but the majority of Haitians don't live in camps. So does that mean that our recommendations should leave them out? No, absolutely not. We have to recognize that the women and girls that live in the camps currently are the most vulnerable. They are engaging in transactional sex in order to survive for as little as 25 cents in order to feed their children and their themselves. They're engaging in transactional sex without access to reproductive care, so they are at risk for the STIs that we just discussed or for pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy. There are women and girls that are risking their lives in order to end pregnancies that they don't want through means that are illegal and unsafe. They don't have access to jobs and to education. These are the most vulnerable of a very vulnerable population. But women and girls living outside of the camps also face considerable concerns, and some of these overlap and some of them are different. But what we really need to look at now, moving forward in development in Haiti, is a broad gender perspective that takes in all of these vulnerabilities and looks at gender inequalities and addresses those issues that lead to violence. Because in this case, violence is a symptom of a broader problem that is currently in Haiti. So one of the things that has to be done by the government, and I would say also by both NGOs and donor states that are operating in Haiti, is to develop and communicate a very broad and comprehensive gender policy that is consistent across organizations and across ministries and policies. And that policy should require that there's a focus on the rights of women and girls, that all data be disaggregated by gender. Currently isn't done in a lot of instances. We don't know how, say, cholera has affected women and girls differently than men and boys. There needs to be an inclusion of a gender-specific analysis in both program, policy design, implementation, and most importantly, in monitoring. Are these programs actually reaching women and girls and having an impact on their rights and their lives? And also, we need to establish concrete gender-specific benchmarks and indicators for these programs and policies. And most importantly, there needs to be clear avenues for women and girls' participation, both in their day-to-day lives, in their communities, in the camps where they live, in the neighborhoods where they live, but also on a national level. Another important aspect is that we need to identify and implement measures that can be put in place for adequate oversight, monitoring, and reporting. So there are programs that are currently in place to address gender-based violence, and there are some programs in place to address gender inequality, but we need to be able to hold these programs and these actors to account, both the international community and the women and girls that are beneficiaries of these programs. So there has to be enough information to allow accountability, and there has to be enough space for monitoring and evaluation. So there's a feedback loop. Are we, in fact, addressing the rights and the concerns that these women and girls have? And that's essential, like I said, to ensure that we're effectively meeting human rights obligations and that we can take remedial actions and, in fact, these obligations aren't being met. And finally, information is key to a lot of these issues. Access is contingent on information. And so there needs to be programs designed to increase women and girls' information. And I'm excited to hear about Emily's work, because I think that the work that they are doing is cutting edge and will provide some avenues for information for many vulnerable women and girls. And something that I want to raise that is currently in the works is that there's a draft violence against women bill. It takes some initial steps to recognize the importance of access to information and the right to information for women and girls, and it also is comprehensively looking at other issues that face women and girls in Haiti, including discrimination in the workplace, harassment in the workplace, and other issues. And so as far as the international community is concerned, we should be looking at this bill, looking how to support this bill, how to strengthen it, and to really push for its inclusion or its adoption. I want to go ahead and close with two quotations from women and girls that are living in the most dire situations that underline what it is that I've been talking about. One is from Viola, and she said, "We have no information, nothing. I would like to know what will happen to us." Granted, this was about a year taken. This testimony was taken about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago today. Sadly, I would say that Viola is not any more informed now than she was a year ago about what's happening to her, what will happen to her. And this is taken from Claudine. And she said, "We're ready to move on, but we don't know how they, the government NGOs, will get us into this process." And I think that's a challenge for the international community. How are we going to get these women and girls into the process? I think that is what we need to be addressing and what we need to be looking at. So, thank you.
I'll try to follow this. Terrific. Thank you, Miss. We'll turn the floor over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to the Woodrow Wilson Center for putting this panel together and for, really re-raising these issues that have kind of fallen off the agenda over the last year and a half or so. I think it's extremely timely to be talking about Haiti and to be really looking at, what happened in Haiti, what did we try in Haiti, what worked in Haiti, and, where are we going to go from here? So my name is Leora Ward. I am a technical advisor which backstops or supports our Haiti program with the International Rescue Committee based here in DC. And I'm going to talk a bit about, how we approached post-earthquake Haiti and how we responded, and then maybe a little bit about, what we saw working and what we saw needed to be changed. Before we head there, I think it's important to talk generally about women and girls in natural disasters. What we found in Haiti is not unlike what we found in our response to tsunamis and cyclones and floods and now the drought in East Africa. And I think it's important to recognize that, we have not built a really good knowledge base around what GBV programming looks like in a natural disaster, in response to a natural disaster. What we do know, absolutely, is that women are far more likely to die than men in natural disasters, that women are at increased risk of violence after a natural disaster, that women do not receive necessary health care after a natural disaster, and that women experience ongoing economic vulnerability in natural disasters. And this, is across the board for Haiti and other contexts. And I'm bringing it up because I think, Haiti does offer us an opportunity to learn. Natural disasters are obviously not going away. So it does offer us an opportunity to learn and look forward to see how we're going to best respond to natural disasters. In terms of gender-based violence in particular, disasters break down social networks and systems that help protect women and girls. Humanitarian actors designing responses to natural disasters rarely undertake measures to respond to sexual violence. And crucial protection systems and response services are typically implemented long after the initial days of the crisis. So this we saw, again, was true in Haiti. It took, weeks for reports to come out about sexual violence in Haiti. And luckily, after those reports came out, we did do continued advocacy, and we got donors to then respond to the issue of gender-based violence in Haiti. But I would say the reality at which we continue to live with Haiti and other natural disasters is that the humanitarian community typically prioritizes food aid, healthcare, water and sanitation services, and shelter from the onset of a response to a natural disaster, often preferring to wait until later to address the issue of sexual violence in an emergency. So, as the humanitarian community, we've been more comfortable with with responding to conflict-related sexual violence. And our programs designed for natural disasters and emergencies are still growing, and we're still documenting, using Haiti as an example, what is working and what we continually need to improve. So let us look at the case study of Haiti. What we saw is IRC, right after the earthquake, we sent 2 emergency GBV technical advisors into Haiti within a couple weeks of the earthquake. And what we saw, based on consultations with women and girls, discussions with both large and small women's organizations, and also conversations with other international organizations in Haiti, was, again, as Amanda mentioned, information and resources was extremely lacking, particularly for women and girls. How do you access food distributions? How do you get access to NFIs? Where do I go? What can I do with my children? Basic necessities, both for men and women, were lacking, but of course for women caused additional risk if they were not able to access them. Water and sanitation was an issue for women and girls. For most of us who have been to Haiti in the last year, we saw women and girls bathing outside naked on the streets without privacy, without access to any sort of showers or facilities. Safety and security, of course, was a problem before the earthquake and only became exponentially a concern for women and girls after the earthquake. Women's sanitary products, something that wasn't being distributed after the earthquake through massive wide-scale distributions, was an issue. Something that we found was that women and girls, did have infections and were getting infections at quite a high rate. So there were needs around that. Livelihoods continues to be a huge issue in Haiti. And of course, GBV services, since we all know that after any sort of disaster, whether it's conflict or a natural disaster, sexual violence absolutely does increase, and we have seen that in multiple places around the world. So, while you could look at this list and say, wow, these are needs for all of the population in Haiti, and, was definitely a need for men and boys, I would say that, you know, women were the ones that were taking care of the children and the elderly. Women were the ones that were providing for their families, and a lot of these needs were exacerbated for women and girls in many ways. So what we did as an organization, we were new to Haiti after the earthquake. We came in and we took all of this information and we tried to develop a programming approach to address the most immediate needs around women and girls. And what we came up with were the 5 priorities that you see here on the screen. I'm not saying that this was a perfect approach, but this was what IRC's approach was, our holistic approach to trying to both address the immediate needs of survivors of gender-based violence in Haiti, but also to start speaking to and working towards prevention for what that meant in the context of Haiti. And also, I would say that these program priorities are based very much on IRC's experience in emergencies. And what we found after the earthquake was, you know, a lot of organizations had a very development approach to their response, both for GBV and other needs. So, you know, we tried to bring in what we knew from other emergencies around the world, from Indonesia, from Pakistan, from Liberia and elsewhere, and we tried to adapt that to the context of Haiti. And the goal was really to create a multi-sectoral program, and this is, you know, a diagram of what IRC sees as an ideal program, multi-sectoral program model for GBV, addressing GBV in emergencies. And it was trying to address the 4 core pillars of prevention, services, empowerment, and advocacy. And really, without the 4 coming together as puzzle pieces, part of a puzzle, you know, we weren't going to be able to create an environment where women and girls could thrive and succeed. So we really felt that, you know, unless we address the violence, the actual experience of violence that women and girls continue to experience, at very high rates in Haiti, you know, we weren't going to be able to create a general environment for women and girls to participate in the rebuilding of their country. So what I'm going to go through generally is just, you know, some of the approaches we took. I might give you some ideas of things to try in other places. Some things worked. Some things could have been improved. But our first program priority was reducing vulnerability. And this was really, really integral immediately after the earthquake. It continues to be an important piece of our work in the camps. But immediately after the earthquake, we did, you know, focus on conducting safety audits in over 10 of the sites, which we then shared both internally with other sectors within IRC as well as other actors outside of IRC. And if you're not familiar with the safety audit, it's really a piece, it's an assessment tool or an observational assessment tool where you walk around a camp and you can really document in what ways are the environmental factors exploiting or causing additional vulnerability for women and girls. We trained and worked with camp managers who where they existed, but, you know, did provide a first point of contact for a lot of women and girls. So we heard a lot, you know, from camp managers that, you know, women were coming forward and they had no idea what information, again, to give them about where they could go for services. We worked with other sectors to ensure risks to women and girls were being considered. And advocated for standards along with other organizations to be taken into account according to the IASC GBV guidelines for emergencies. And it really was about, you know, Haiti was really a context where people were completely overwhelmed and throwing standards out the door. And we tried to, there are standards that exist for GBV programming in emergencies, and we tried to really, go back to that, introduce that, and tried to get us back to the basics in a lot of ways. And we distributed women's dignity and hygiene kits, again, which included items that weren't being distributed in general distributions, but were very specific to the needs of women and girls, sanitary pads, underwear, and so forth. And then this program priority really, fed into and bled into our second program priority around community-based prevention. And this was really about trying to get women and girls before they experienced violence, and to put some safety nets, and to use whatever community support systems there were to prevent further violence. That included safety planning with survivors. So if someone did come forward, we would ask them, are you in danger? Who's putting you in danger? What are your safety plans? Who can you go to? And to help them really think about how they could provide their own personal safety. Created information boards in the camp. Again, information specifically targeted towards women and girls was a huge gap in Haiti. Supported women's leadership and networking. To try to collaborate, to take on more leadership roles, and to have more of a voice in their communities. Develop safe spaces, both for women, but also for adolescent girls, where they could come together, support each other, talk about different support systems and strategies moving forward. And we supported community mobilization and awareness raising activities in the camps. And it really was about redeveloping communities and using the void of leadership to see if we could actually take advantage of opportunities to promote women, both within the camps. And we saw a lot of women coming forward, taking on responsibility and taking on decision making for the camps that they were living. The third program priority, which in my mind is the most important, if not one of the most important, is access to services. And through access to services component, we identified and built the capacity of various service providers, mostly in the psychosocial and medical fields. We assisted with transportation for survivors, which was something that came up quite a lot. Women and girls saying that the services were all the way across town, they had no money, they did not feel safe, accessing these services alone. We shared information about referral points and pathways where they existed. So again, women and girls knew what they could expect, and what the process was that they could go through if they did come forward and report. We shared information about services, which seems like such a simple intervention, but information was simply not getting out. People didn't know where to go. People didn't know where their nearest facilities were. People didn't know who to expect when they got there. People didn't know how to contact them. And then we tried as much as possible, and this is something where we're focusing on over the next year, is improving age-specific services. So again, a lot of the services we found were very general to survivors of gender-based violence or sexual violence or other types of violence, and it wasn't relevant for every age. A service that you gave to a woman would not be necessarily relevant to a service you would give to a child. So trying to adapt those services and help service providers to get more specialized. And this program area, I think, is especially important because without services, nothing else would be possible. I really, IRC strongly believes that services are the entry point for which you get information, for which you get people to come forward, from which you really can start to understand what's going on and to get women and girls exactly what they're telling you they need. Another program priority, which I think was, quite specific to Haiti, was improving coordination. And as many of you know, I'm sure many of you know about Haiti much more than I do, but it was absolute chaos and continues to be in some respects, and there was a real need to get coordinated around service provision in particular, but also around general GBV programming, so that we were not duplicating efforts, but also making the most of the resources that were being put into that country. And some of the things we contributed to in coordination with other members of the GBV subcluster were the development of referral cards, which were meant to be an emergency intervention to get women and girls information about where they could go for services. Obviously attended cluster meetings and advocated strongly for strategies around how the cluster was operating. We created key messages and guidance. We undertook on behalf of the subcluster a mapping of key actors so that we could really understand who was doing what where, and how we were best going to collaborate with each other. And we tried as much as possible to really push the subcluster to coordinate both with the Concertation Nationale, the ministry, and to be more relevant to what was happening in Haiti, ensuring that meetings were held in French and Creole, that they were off the UN log base and were more accessible to the multitude of actors working in Haiti. And we really, tried as much as possible to redevelop, the cluster system, which had kind of come into Haiti to form itself around the needs that existed in Haiti at that time. And the last priority was around advocacy and ensuring that women and girls' voices were really being heard. And I would say, getting the needs of women and girls to the forefront. And this, was a collective effort between all of us, getting articles out, highlighting the voices of women and girls and their words, talking about women and girls and key policy discussions that have happened since the earthquake, advocating for a partnership approach and that everything really should be happening in conjunction and collaboration with the women's organizations on the ground, discussions with donors, trying to inform donor strategies and donor approaches, and something I think that speaks to what Amanda had said is addressing the lack of data issue. And our stance on this issue was that we don't need data to respond to GBV in Haiti. We know from emergencies around the world that sexual violence increases, and we know that we have to respond. And by responding, we'll get the information we need. So the message was really, let's respond. We have an obligation to respond. And through responding, the data will come. It wasn't the other way around, where we go and do a bunch of surveys and assessments, get the information 6 months or a year later, and then think about our response. And we really feel like that's relevant for Haiti as well as other contexts around the world. And I have to just say that none of this was done in isolation, and we really give credit to our learning and our successes in collaboration with CAIFAM, SOFA, Kofa Vive, Limi Lavi, who's based in Jacmel, and a number of community-based organizations that nobody really hears about. But there is an extremely strong women's network in Haiti, and our approach was really informed by that, and we knew, being newcomers to Haiti after the earthquake, that nothing would be possible without or sustainable without these partners. And so everything was very much done in collaboration with them, and continues to be a discussion with these organizations and others, both within the Concertation Nationale and not. And I think that is a critical piece to success in Haiti. What I'd want to say now is to take a look at where we've come, and things have changed in Haiti, and I think we need to really look at our programming, and we need to grow our programming. We need to revisit our programming, and some of the continuing challenges and opportunities that I would like to share with you from my perspective are that long-term funding for prevention and service provision is a problem, a huge problem, and we're talking about an issue that cannot be resolved in 1 year, in 2 years. Again, existed before the earthquake, and it has even gotten worse. And funding, I think, cannot be ignored as a critical piece. Developing an inclusive and coordinated approach to programming. I would say there's still a lot of divisions within the women's movement in Haiti, but also between the local women's movement and those of us that have come in as outsiders. And I think until we can resolve some of those divisions and come to a coordinated approach, we're not going to be as effective as we could be. Improving and building upon what existed as opposed to setting up parallel systems. We have lots of great tools and models from things that have worked in other countries, but the reality is that, Haiti has a lot of systems in place, and systems around data collection, around service provision, around policy, and it's really going to be a matter of improving and building upon that. And taking advantage of opportunities to change gender dynamics in Haitian society. I think, in a lot of ways we missed opportunities, but also are not recognizing the opportunities that we have in Haiti to really use our policies, the USG strategy, our funding, our influence, to re-examine some really deeply held gender norms that exist in that country. And ensuring the humanitarian and development programming are implemented side by side. And, Amanda mentioned cholera, and I think we haven't seen the last of, epidemics and emergencies in Haiti. And as we transition to more longer-term development approaches in Haiti, I think we cannot forget the rains and the continuing need for emergency capacity and emergency programming in Haiti. A lot of the needs that we see coming out of the camps are very similar to the needs we saw, over a year and a half ago. So we need to ensure that our programming is really kind of looking at the dual tracks or approaches. And I think, I'll leave it at that. I have, many recommendations for how we move forward, but hopefully, we can discuss some of that a bit more. And thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Leora. We'll turn finally to Emily, and I'll pull up hers right here. From the journalism and mobile tech perspective, please. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Well, I want to echo my fellow participants and say thank you to the Wilson Center, thank you to both of you, and really thank you to everybody who's here in this room. I've been working on gender-based violence issues in Haiti now for a year and a half or a little bit over, and it's not a happy or cheerful subject, and I really want to honor all of you for coming to sit and be a part of this conversation. Because it is really difficult and it is challenging. And despite knowing everything I do, I still get chills when I hear Amanda share some of the details of the history of sexual violence in Haiti and the reality on the ground today. And the reality, as Leora shared, of every time there's a conflict and every time there's a natural disaster, how much violence and negativity comes from that. And it is challenging and difficult. I'm going to try to focus today on some of the positive things that are coming from it, and the changes aren't happening yet. I mean, the numbers aren't necessarily going down already or those sorts of things, but we are seeing a real building up of, I think, resistance networks and networks of men and women working to combat these challenges, and that's really exciting for me. So I'm Emily Jacobi. I co-founded this organization called Digital Democracy 3 years ago, based on work actually in Southeast Asia with populations from Burma, Myanmar. And we were really founded on the idea that as technology proliferates, as more and more people have smart or dumb phones, in their pockets, how do we use those tools to actually make a difference and enhance civic participation and, true democratic engagement? So we work in communities all over the world, working hand in hand with grassroots organizations, with our partners, helping them build their capacity to use tools to fight for their human rights. Today I'm going to focus on specifically on mobile technology and the ways in which that's being used to address gender-based violence in Haiti, but we've been doing kind of comprehensive work around building the capacity of women leaders in Haiti. So to begin, we actually had a small team who was in Haiti just before the earthquake, and they were doing a project with young people around photography in northern Haiti. And our team was actually on the ground in Port-au-Prince on January 12th, 2010, when the earthquake struck, which led us to be very involved in the immediate technology community's response. And it was kind of a watershed moment for a lot of smaller kind of startup, whether they were nonprofits or not, technology groups that are really trying to work in the humanitarian and development space. When groups like Ushahidi, which I'll explain more about later, and others started really getting involved in that immediate response, and we were a part of that. And our focus, again, because it's really on marginalized groups and how they can use technology to have more of a voice, it didn't take very long for us to start hearing about the reports that other groups were putting out around the problems of gender-based violence in the camps. And we're a New York-based organization, and as Leora talked about, all this reconstruction plans were going on in spring of 2010, and there were so few women's voices being heard. And that's really what led us to start working with women specifically, because we felt like they were being, just further marginalized and made vulnerable by the disaster relief process. So this is a picture from a first meeting with women from 4 different grassroots organizations. And as you can tell, they're mostly on their phones. These were all women who were living in the camps, and they had their phones out. And, when we asked them if they had taken photos before, because we were actually doing a photography project, many of them said, well, only with my phone, and they got out and showed their camera phone. And that's kind of a moment when it kind of hit us, all right, something's happening here. Even in these camps where, of course, there's not really electricity or other things, they're finding ways to charge their phones and to use those tools to communicate post-disaster. And in fact, studies have shown that in post-disaster situations, people prioritize the money that they need to spend on their phones to communicate over pretty much all other needs, including water and food, because knowing where your family and your friends are and knowing how to communicate with them is just that important. So to take it global for a second, of course, we recently surpassed the 7 billion mark on worldwide population. There's more than 5, I've recently heard 6 billion mobile phones in the world. It's really huge. Obviously, not everybody has a mobile phone, but that number is increasing. A report put out last year by the GSMA and the Sherry Blair Foundation found that while there's a gender gap, the gender gap is about 21%. Women are 21% less likely to own mobile phones. That gap is closing, and as that gap closes, there's significant gains made by women. Some statistics from that report that I think are really worth noting: 93% of women report feeling safer because they have a mobile phone. 85% of women report feeling more independent because they have a mobile phone, and 41% of women reported having increased income or professional opportunities as a result of having a mobile phone. So those are really some significant, significant findings about the impact that a simple device can have on a woman's life. So taking that to the context of Haiti, Internews Network did a series of surveys post-earthquake, and in, I believe it was March of last year, found that mobile phone use in Port-au-Prince was really prevalent. And this was, looking in the camps, that 83% of men and 67% of women had mobile phones, which meant that there was a really large number of people who had access to a mobile phone, even if it wasn't their own. So that's kind of the context that we came into it when we started working with women's groups last year. Again, as I said, we started working with grassroots women's organizations, really representing populations that live in the camps. A group that's been mentioned that has become our primary partner that I'm going to talk about today in our programs is COFAVIV, which stands for Commission of Women Victims for Victims. They were founded by two women who themselves had been victims of rape during the political coup of 1994, and then founded 7 years ago when they met and wanted to actually provide more services to other women. So this is the first meeting of COFAVIV that I stumbled upon. This is the meeting underneath a tarp in the driveway of the BAI, which is the Bureau des Avocats Internationaux, the International Lawyers Bureau, which is the Haitian arm, which is linked to an American group called the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti. They've been partnered on many of these reports that have come out about gender-based violence in Haiti and provide a space for many grassroots groups. So this was spring 2010. When 100 women were meeting for a weekly meeting, representing groups from many different camps, talking about what was happening in each one of their camps. We started working with them on ways in which they could incorporate a whole host of technologies into their work. And one of the first things we did last fall was trainings on Frontline SMS. How many of you are familiar with Frontline SMS? Okay, great. So Frontline SMS is a free and open source software that you can download, anybody anywhere can download online, and you plug in either a modem or just a regular old phone into a computer, and then you can use that tool to send text messages to large groups of people. Basically the same way you might set up an email newsletter, you can set up a text message list. So you can send text messages to groups. So COFAVIV started using that last fall based on trainings we did with support from U.S. Institute of Peace. And we initially started doing it around the elections and monitoring violence around the elections. COFAVIV actually found increased rates of gender-based violence in the month leading up to the election versus the months around it, which is a really interesting finding in a context of greater violence in general that was happening in the country. They're now using Frontline SMS for a variety of ways. One is they have a network of 66 agents that operate in dozens of camps and neighborhoods. So they'll use this to send a message announcing meetings, announcing protests, announcing distribution of different kits, such as like dignity kits that might be given by a group like IRC. And then also to coordinate a men's group that they have formed. So they have a group of about 100 men who volunteer and actually help patrol some of the camps at night. And they use the same system, Frontline SMS, to coordinate via text message with them. So it's been really exciting to see the way that this one free tool has been used in many different ways. We've also started using a kind of more sophisticated tool, which is actually connecting their mobiles via Twitter. And in the Twitter sphere, of course, there's a lot of talk that happens about Haiti, and most of it's in English, and most of it's by outsiders. So COFAVIV has their own accounts, and a lot of their agents have now set up their own accounts thanks to our trainings, and they're tweeting in Creole and in English. Sorry, this screenshot's only of the English version, but they tweet in Creole first and then often in English. And they can both do that from computers, but they also have set up on their phones, even if they don't have a smartphone, they can set up via the free shortcode to be able to send messages. You can follow them at COFAVIV. This is a project set up by another group, Haiti SMS Sekou, which is another system built actually on Frontline SMS and Ushahidi, which I mentioned earlier. How many of you are familiar with Ushahidi? All right, about the same. folks. So Ushahidi is a system, another free open source piece of software that was built actually in Kenya back in 2007 following post-election violence by a group of Kenyans who were really frustrated by the violence that was happening in their community and the fact that media wasn't fully reporting it. So they set up a simple way for them to be able to receive messages via text message, via the web, via email, and to be able to map those onto an online map. That system has now been downloaded by thousands of people, used in hundreds of incidents all over the world. And this particular group, run by Survivors Connect, which works on anti-trafficking issues, they've partnered with COFAVIV and another local organization, have set up this this online system for mapping incidents of gender-based violence, child abuse, potential human trafficking, and so on. So as you can see, the map kind of looks at where the different reports are coming from, and it can all be filed via text message to that free text message number, and then COFAVIV actually responds to messages that are urgent ones and that need a response. Well, we were really interested actually in mobile phones and spent a lot of time talking to people and spend a lot of time with COFAVIV finding out how victims find them, how they get access to their psychosocial support, how they get access to medical care, and so on. And from that, COFAVIV developed the idea for a call center. That call center, 572, is a free number that you can dial via either of the two major mobile providers in Haiti, and you can get access to information. So if a woman has been raped or attacked, she or somebody who cares about her can call to find out where the nearest medical center is, how she can access it, how she can get connected to a survivors network such as COFAVIV, or if there aren't COFAVIV agents in her area, another network. It leads her down a process of being able to have intake with a group like COFAVIV, the options of being able to follow for for prosecution if she wants to pursue the case in in court and so on. In the call center, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we set it up and what are the different components. But the call centers, I mean, the idea of a helpline isn't very innovative. Obviously, we've had them around for a long time. We all know of helplines here in the United States for domestic violence, for rape, for crisis, and we have services like 911. In Haiti, none of those exist. And so it is innovative for this group of women to choose to put their resources and their time and their energy into trying to reach beyond their current network, which is more than 1,000 women, to try to reach actually a much wider network in a way that really technology can do better than simply sending out women to every single camp. So these are some of just kind of a mock-up of the advertisements. Left side English, right side Creole, for really announcing that they can either call the 572 number or text the number, which is the Haiti SMS Sekou. So to talk a little bit about what happens when a woman calls, as I said, they find out immediately the basic information of the case and where a woman is located, what kind of services she's already accessed. The reason they chose 572 was to highlight 72. If a woman can get services within 72 hours, she dramatically increases her chance of diminishing the transfer of HIV/AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases, as well as pregnancy and helping to prevent pregnancy, as well as getting the medical certificate that's so critical if she does decide to pursue justice in the particular case. They do an initial intake over the phone, and then depending on where a woman is and how they've gotten connected to her, sometimes a woman herself hasn't called but has actually gone to a police officer or gone to the hospital, and the hospital or the police precinct will call COFAVIV. They then figure out how to get her to where she needs to go next. So if she doesn't have medical care, how to get her there. If there's a person nearby that can accompany her to that, as Leora mentioned, transport is such a major issue. They do that. And if not, they direct her to where she can go, and then they can go to meet her there. Then the next opportunity is really finding out whether or not she wants to be part of the COFAVIV network. The COFAVIV is a network of survivors, and they have weekly meetings. There are many opportunities. All of the women employed by the call center and by the intake and database process are all women who themselves are survivors and who found the network first when they were in a moment of need. And so this center that they work out of, you would think it might be a really dark, depressing place because it's all women who have gone through something horrible. But it actually becomes a center, a place of real lightness and love that is just really powerful to be in because they're the solidarity is really palpable, and the ways in which I think these women, as leaders who really understand how to build a really strong network, know how to tap into the kind of spiritual healing that needs to happen. And as an outsider, I've just been totally blown away by the ways in which a real community is formed when they're there. So when a woman actually comes into the space, she's welcomed into that. And she sits down one-on-one with an agent who's really been trained on how to, kind of the psychological process of the intake form and getting all the information that's needed and talking through the options. So many people, for many obvious reasons, don't always want to pursue justice, for instance, but really talking through what her options might be. And in the case of the unfortunately increasing number of young girls and adolescent girls who have been attacked, talking that through maybe with their mom or their aunt or whoever actually brings them into this space. This is just a picture of one of the agents working on the actual digital database that we've worked on, which I won't go into much detail here, but of course that's a key component. As Leora said, you get people services, and through that process you collect data. And from the data that COFAVIV's collected, there have been really interesting revelations that we've had about where rapes are taking place. For instance, a growing number of rapes are women are being abducted from the camps and then being taken to abandoned buildings and being attacked. And that's all information we've found through digitizing the data and putting it into reports. And then this rather complicated schematic just kind of describes the process. So the upper left, you have a woman who's a victim, whether it's her own phone or somebody else's phone that she borrows, she's able to call for free to COFAVIV's Women's Center, they ensure that one way or another she gets to the medical care that she needs. That's the first step always, and then usually they go to meet her there and bring her to the COFAVIV Women's Center where they do the intake process. They get her connected to the psychosocial support where all of her information goes into the digital form, and then if she so chooses, she can go into prosecution. All of the aggregated, non-confidential data goes into maps, which are used then feedback into the advocacy loop and so on. The call center, the 572 system we've been building really since January. The call center only launched in August, and we have yet to actually fully launch it with a broad-based awareness campaign in all of the city. So it's been supported, and the information's been spread thus far through word of mouth, through different partners, and just through their networks. We're working with groups including UNHCR, which has been a major supporter of the call center and of the database, to really look for the support to publicize this more broadly. And the first step, really, the launch in August, was really a trial phase to see what is the capacity of COFAVIV to take down these calls. What is the psychological effect of talking through some of these difficult issues on the phone and then bringing them into the office and so on. And thus far, a lot of really good lessons have been learned, and they've really feel ready to kind of take it on to the next phase. So I'll end with that. We're not sure exactly what new challenges we're going to find along the way. It's a pretty big undertaking to really try to provide that kind of support in a situation where there is such so many information gaps and so on. But it's been really exciting to work alongside our partners as they've been kind of figuring out the answers to those questions.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Emily. Thank you, Emily, and thank all three of you for giving us a lot to a lot to talk about in discussion, which is what we will turn to now. I have two colleagues who will help us with that, with the Q&A, with microphones. We ask that you do wait for that so that the folks online can hear your question as well. If you could let us know who you are and pose your question, that would be terrific. We prefer not to have speeches, but just questions. And feel free to direct it to anyone in particular, the whole panel. So why don't we have one down here, Kaylee, all the way down, and then Sky, while we're doing that, why don't you have one couple there and then down?
Thanks. I'm Elaine Zuckerman from Gender Action. I had a question that came to mind when Leora was speaking, and you actually started addressing it a little bit, but I was wondering if you could tell us more about this. And that is, there's so many groups who are working with the same partners in Haiti who, I don't know to what extent or not, they're collaborating. We just heard from Emily about awesome work with COFAVIV, and many of us know lots of global groups, international groups, who are working with COFAVIV besides digital democracy. For example, Madre and I think ActionAid, lots of groups. So are these groups, to your knowledge, and I raise this question to more than one of you, since you're at least two of you are working with COFAVIV, maybe three of you. Are you trying to coordinate in any way? Or are you all each approaching, for example, COFAVIV and other women's groups in Haiti, and working with them separately on projects? And I just wonder, when one knows about how aid agencies have caused a lot of difficulty for government agencies when they all descend upon them with different projects. And so I'd like to hear more about how this problem of approaching a group like COFAVIV separately for many wonderful problems can be addressed. And then also a very quick question for Emily is, how do the women in the camps charge their phones? Or women or men? How do people charge their phones? I've been wondering about that for a while.
Thank you very much.
Could I add a quick comment also?
Sure.
There are a few of us in the room who work together very closely in a group called the Haiti Advocacy Working Group that established right after the earthquake. Maybe 40 groups or so of us belong to it. And we've been trying to coordinate together, and it's kind of a model actually that relates to my question to you also. And we have some subgroups. We have one on GBV. Amanda's started participating recently, and on many other topics. And we're an advocacy group, and we've actually been trying to push for achieving some successes. So I just wanted to share also with you one little GBV success, and I see on the list here, there are a couple of people here from the World Bank. One of the things that we noticed in our Haiti Advocacy Working Group was in the now $800 million approved by the World Bank and the IDB in 80 operations, more or less, in the first 75, none of them had addressed gender-based violence. And that's astonishing. $800 million approved since the earthquake, and none of that money addressing gender-based violence. Well, we did advocacy, and so the World Bank, after much pressure and exposure and shaming them, finally approved one small $500,000 grant for Haiti for gender-based violence. And it's just a little speck of what the World Bank's spending in Haiti. But I just wanted to share what our Haiti Advocacy Working Group is doing, and a lot of stuff on the U.S. government my colleagues may want to add to that.
Perfect. Why don't we collect a few? So, Sky, you have a question over there? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Meilat Manuyadla. Thank you for the panel, for the information that you provided us today, and also the Woodrow Wilson Center for hosting this event. I just had a couple of questions for you guys. I know that Mrs. Ward, you mentioned that one of the multi-sectoral approaches that the IRC took involved empowering and empowerment in particular. So I was just wondering about training and the transference of knowledge and capacity building, and where you guys are at with that. How much of that has been done? How many people have been trained? As we know, this is a very environmentally vulnerable area, so that this will continue to come up, and we need to make sure that that the people are empowered to be able to continue to address this issue. So that was my question. I also had a question regarding the SMS system. Is it just being able to map where these attacks are happening, or is it a matter of being able to, I know there are some SMS systems used in the development field to be able to go out in the field and track numbers and have that data go directly into, for instance, an Excel file or something like that. So I'm just wondering the level of detail that we could get in terms of the data. And also, how are you providing phones, or are you just using the phones that are already there? How is the cost piece covered as far as that's concerned? And that was it. Those two are my questions. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Okay, perhaps, Emily, can we start with you then with the couple questions that you got about how they charge the phones and mapping?
Sure.
And
Yeah. So how they charge the phones. I would love to just spend time kind of doing anthropological research into all of the details, but basically there's lots of stands. Like as you drive down major roads, you'll see people with like little stands where they'll have phone charging. You can charge phones off of car batteries, solar stuff, of course. And then also what I've noticed is that women take their chargers with them everywhere. And anytime they're at an office or the clinic or wherever, they totally, and they'll ask me, like if my computer's plugged in, they'll be like, hey, Emily, can you unplug your computer so I can charge my phone? And of course, I always say yes. So they just, they figure it out. That doesn't mean that their phones are always 100% charged. Of course, if you don't have a smartphone, the batteries generally last longer. If you're not making a lot of calls, the batteries generally last longer. They don't always have credit. Credit is a major challenge, which is why any service that hopes to be successful has to be free, because people who don't have credit on their phones need to be able to call. And so that's the major thing. So that kind of gets to the price question. We try not to in our programs, where at all possible, not to bring in technology or to have to buy much technology, aside from maybe a few computers to help a system run, because we really think that the market drives that communication technology, and it needs to be driven by that. The same way, the way people charge their phones or get people to charge phones is very entrepreneurial. The SMS system, I can't speak to too much because it's not our project, and I just wanted to point it out because it's another, mobile-based system. I think they're primarily gathering information and trying to use it as a kind of as a way to respond to a whole host of information. In terms of our call center, because we found that for cases of GBV, often a woman really needed to call and hear somebody's voice and get that back and forth and have that dialogue and really be told where to go and get support. We're gathering all of that information. It's going into a very detailed database that is producing monthly reports on the information. And yeah, that data I think is really critical. And then finally, on the note of coordination, I think it's a totally critical question. And we have the luxury of being very focused on the technology side of things. So we really try to play that role with our partners. And in that process, we, of course, learn about all the different things they're doing. But I think there definitely are gaps. And I'm kind of curious to hear if people here have best practices for those kinds of conversations. And I think it gets into really tricky issues of agency, locals agency, over questions of kind of when development comes in and it seems almost neo-colonial, some of the questions that are asked and so on. So I think that coordination question is really critical, and we don't necessarily have an easy answer, except that we try to. COFAV was the one who had the capacity for us to build a call center with. We're doing lots of other programs with lots of other grassroots groups that don't have the capacity to run a call center yet, but are doing other good work too. So that's what I'll say about that for now.
okay. Leora, you want to take the empowerment and training question?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to kind of mirror Emily's response to your coordination question, in that I think we have much more room for improvement in that area. I think because some of the more formal coordination groups and mechanisms in Haiti have not worked so well, it's even more critical and incumbent upon us to really, when we approach these organizations, to think about, are we asking about the other organizations? Are we trying to kind of fill their gap? gaps, or are we solely trying to fill our own needs? And I think there's some organizations in Haiti that are extremely strong, that have strategic plans in place, and you will approach them and they will directly say to you, we're not interested, this is not part of where we're going at the moment, we can continue conversations later. And then there's some organizations who will kind of take or receive anything where they can, and that can create enormous problems for them in the end. So I think, when we're developing groups, to think beyond just the programmatic pieces and the technical pieces, and really helping them to think through the more organizational skills that are required to run an organization is really important. And being able to turn people away and say, really kind of guide us as outsiders that are coming in. So it was a great question. In terms of the empowerment question, also a very good question. I would say that a lot of our programming over the first year was really around service provision and not general empowerment, although, within our service provision, our direct response to survivors, there are a lot of aspects around, empowerment of an individual in that experience. So a lot of, service provision around gender-based violence is around affirmations, is around psychoeducation, is around, linking a woman back into her community and really helping her to get back on her feet. So we've done a lot of that in the first year. After the first year, some of the things we are moving into is, we developed an adolescent girl specific program, which incorporates a lot of strategies around empowerment. We have been bringing girls together in safe spaces at different ages. We've been developing a curriculum where we identify mentors in the community, and then they deliver the curriculum to the adolescent girls. And the whole purpose of the mentoring approach and linking older women to younger women or girls strategy is really around getting girls to understand their bodies, to understand their environments, to be able to make good decisions for themselves, to feel some sort of control or power around their lives. And we really feel that this program has it could be used as a prevention program, and is very much a prevention program, and in developing the networks around girls that are safety nets for girls, we can really both empower them but also kind of catch them at the age before they experience violence, and hope to support them through a life free of violence. So that's kind of one example, and of course with additional funding and time, we'd love to do more. We have some really exciting models around economic empowerment as well, both for women and girls, which we'd like to introduce in Haiti, and is there's quite a great need for that sort of programming as well.
I'm just going to address the coordination issue. And from the perspective of a human rights monitoring group, this is a huge issue. The state is the primary guarantor of rights. When there's concerns around GBV, we want to know where the state is failing in its obligations. And the fact is, we don't know what programs exist, what money is coming in from what donors in a comprehensive way, who is working with NGOs. And so it creates a difficult landscape in order to monitor and see where the failures are, either by donor states or donors more broadly, if you include IFIs, or by the government itself. Everyone we meet with has a GBV program, and they're working with someone. And so we address some of the coordination issues in our report through the perspective of the health sector. So there is some work to monitor and register groups, NGOs operating in the health sector. I think it would be helpful to think through ways to have a greater coordination in the GBV sector as well, so that the Ministry of Women can actually play the role they should be playing and monitoring whether or not there are gaps, so that the government can build a plan that adequately addresses women's issues, taking into account what is being covered by donors or being covered by NGOs. So I think this is a really key issue, and there's a lot of opportunity to work on that and to really build something important and useful for the government and for donors.
Lots more questions. So Sky, you have one over there? Couple?
Hello. Thank you again for speaking to us. This was really fascinating, and I'm very happy to be here this afternoon. My name is Catherine Dillon. I have a question primarily for Emily, but taken out of the call center context, this could apply to all three of you. I work on the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline, fielding calls from victims of sex and labor trafficking and connecting them with services in the United States, depending upon their needs. So we also have the capacity to accept reports of potential trafficking situations from law enforcement and community members and other service providers. And I'm curious whether or not, as you said, the call center just recently launched, relatively recently. I'm curious about the capacity or about projections for training the larger community, law enforcement, other service providers who are not so directly related to gender-based violence, to identify signs of abuse, report situations or potential perpetrators. And I'm just wondering about the projections of the call center to handle this type of information coming from the outside community, not just victim focus. And then for the group as a whole, just engagement of actors who are not survivors, victims, nor perpetrators of the violence, and how to involve the wider community in the GBV movement. Prevention movement.
Catherine, I think somebody right next to you has a question too.
Hi, I'm Maureen Taft-Morales from the Congressional Research Service. Thank you all. Leora, you brought up continuing challenges and opportunities, and one of them you mentioned was taking advantage of opportunities to change gender dynamics in Haitian society. All three of you have firsthand on-the-ground experience with those gender dynamics, and I'm wondering what kind of suggestions, advice do you have for policymakers at a broad level for how can the donors start addressing those dynamics, and how can they start changing those gender dynamics in Haitian society? And perhaps you might also want to touch on how do you change the gender dynamics among the donors to make them more aware that this something needs to be done.
Perfect. Thank you, Maureen. Was there a hand down in the middle? Yeah, I see one there, and then we'll get in the back.
Hi, my name is Charlene by Amy. Again, thank you for taking the time to present this information to us. My question will be aimed more at Leora and Amanda. I was just wondering, what steps have your organization taken towards perpetrator reform? I know that women and girls are the main victims of most GBV instances of crimes, but they are not the cause of it. So what has been taken towards reforming the perpetrators that are the cause of this violence, and have any steps been taken towards protecting the rights of young boys? We oftentimes tend to overlook them, but they can also be victims of gender-based violence. So those are my main two questions.
Great. Thank you, Charlene. I can see a hand in the back. I can't see whose it is, but...
Hi, I'm Tara Arthur with the Haitian Sports Foundation and the Haitian Hometown Association's resource group. I have a couple quick questions regarding, I kind of actually was going to ask pretty much what you just did, but so I won't go into that too much, but I am curious to see what other programs you have addressing men. I know you mentioned the 100 Men Frontline group, but also interested in hearing a little bit more about that. I'm also interested in hearing if there are any statistics related to, because there has been reports of those who are there to help also committing some of these acts of violence, and what are those international organizations doing to address that? Because that may create some barriers of reporting issues. And one of my organizations, we are working to address that issue of women understanding their bodies. And how are you reaching out to some of those non-traditional groups? A woman spoke earlier that aren't, necessarily in the GBV frame, and how do you get them to be a little bit more streamlined into that process? What are your organizations doing to better address those issues?
Over here? Yes, please, ma'am.
Thank you so very much for a really interesting and engaging presentation. My name is Pat Morris, and I'm with Creative Associates International. And Amanda, in her presentation, talked about some of the needs that survivors have, and one of those needs was, in terms of livelihoods. And Leora, you started to talk about focusing on economic empowerment. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a bit more about that. I like the multi-sectoral program model, but I didn't hear you until a moment ago talk about the economic piece. And having worked with lots of women in more complex emergencies, even when we've worked on all of the issues of prevention and services and advocacy and voice, the number one thing they talk about is being able to earn an income so they can take care of themselves and their families. So I'm wondering, what are some of the ideas or lessons that you have for that? And maybe Amanda can say something about how you connect the issues of women's voice to the piece about economic empowerment. And then I was also hoping that maybe Emily might say something about, in terms of the technology. I mean, technology is, certainly for development and as a source of communications and that sort of thing. I'm wondering if you are also looking at possibilities for technology as a way for women to earn an income, for instance, and what are some things that you're looking at in that regard. And then I would also sort of piggyback on the past two people who were talking about what are some of the lessons that we've learned and opportunities that are there to one program for boys in particular who may also be victims of sexual gender-based violence, but also what are ways that you are bringing men in. I know you talked about what the one group is doing in terms of them being able to support ending, violence against women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat. We have, by my count, 8 questions and 8 minutes to do it. So, Amanda, would you start us off with our kind of closing remarks for panel?
Sure. So I think that the question about gender dynamics is an important one. What can we do as policymakers of the international community to affect gender dynamics? And that really ties into the livelihoods question. I think that economic empowerment is crucial for women and girls in Haiti. It's crucial for everyone in Haiti at this point in time, but there are specific concerns that women and girls have, and that's why we need a broad gender perspective. We need to look specifically at the needs of women and girls. One of the issues that women and girls need to be able to choose the number and spacing of children. In the absence of having any sort of plan for economic empowerment, women and girls are rational actors, and they will use what resources they have, and at this point in time, for many women and girls, that's just their bodies. And so if that's where we are right now, we need to ensure that women can protect themselves until we as policymakers come forward with something that's better for them to do. But this is the reality, and this is what we need to address as an international community. Steps for perpetrator reform, this is hugely complicated because the justice sector in Haiti is so fragile. I think it is important. I believe maybe it was Trans-Africa came out with a report shortly after the earthquake and identified that a lot of perpetrators are incredibly traumatized by the experiences as well of the earthquake. So I think there's a huge problem in Haiti right now of survivor trauma. It's a country almost that's dealing with, an entire country dealing with post-traumatic stress. There's not mental health services widely available, and it's an issue that will, I think, increasingly be a concern as it's left unnoticed and unaddressed. As far as the rights of young boys, the CHRGJ survey found that about 14% of the victims in their survey were in fact young boys, and so this is a concern. Gender-based violence does not mean just violence against women. It is violence perpetrated against someone in a particular form because of their gender. So I think that's increasingly a concern that we do need to address. SEA issues, sexual abuse and exploitation issues, I think I'll let Leona address that because I saw she had written a note about it, so I'll let her do that. Engaging men, I think that's also an issue. Part of that is engaging men that are policymakers. In Haiti, that's engaging the current government. There are allies within this government. I'm hoping that we can, leverage those allies for policy changes and an impact. And how to address actors not in the GBV frame. This is incredibly important as well. A very weak justice sector means that we have very weak police, very weak magistrates. So it's very important that those actors receive training. There's work being done by UN Women and by the GBV subcluster to do that, but it's not sufficient. It needs to be across the board. And also health and medical providers. This was a big concern that we identified. The health and medical providers are not trained in how to recognize signs of violence, and this is very important as they are in the first line of defense in order to address these issues. So lots of issues that still need to be addressed.
So let's see how much I can cover in the amount of time we have. There were some really technical questions that require longer, kind of broader conversations around some of the technical programming around GBV. But just to give you a taste, I'll start with the economic question. IRC has been piloting in a number of countries an economic model centered around VSLA, Village Savings and Loans, which is, very much a model that Haitians have used culturally in their context, the, coming together, pooling money, loaning it out, saving it, building up to invest in something greater. And we've used that model in conjunction with business skills training, as well as gendered discussion groups between women and their partners, whether it's their husbands or their boyfriends, so that, when women do start to acquire money, they can keep the money and then they can keep control of that money. I think without those discussion groups and involving the partners, it's very difficult to kind of do economic empowerment with women in such a context. So, we have started doing this kind of program in Nairobi, which is an urban area. We think it could be relevant for Haiti and very useful. We're trying to find funding around that. It could be one of many models around livelihoods. In terms of the men and boys question, I want to really highlight that, we always work with men and boys. I mean, there is not any way that you can do GBV programming without engaging with, community leaders, camp leaders, religious leaders, service providers, many of which are men, most of which. All of which, no, sorry, many of which are men. And, we engage them all the time in our programming in terms of enabling access for women, educating, holding discussion groups with men and boys. That being said, I think, there's much more we could do. And I think now is a time in Haiti to start entering into those discussions around empowerment programming and changing social norms. And we do not work with perpetrators. We don't have that skill and feel that our programming needs to be survivor and women-centered. So that's just an IRC stance. But, we do have really interesting models around, engaging in men discussion groups. We have a series that we're piloting in West Africa around men discussion groups, where you enter men into a very, very structured conversation that happens over a long period of time. That helps them to think about, how they use their power, where they use their power, do they use their power negatively, how can they use their power in different ways to support their communities. And these are all things that we could definitely introduce into the Haiti context. We're also doing quite a bit of learning around child survivors, and I think that's relevant to the discussion around young boys, is how do we not only make our services more relevant to young girls who are likely experiencing most of the violence, but how do we, really tailor our services as well so that young boys feel like they can access them and that it's relevant to their needs. I don't know that I can address the other questions without taking out more time. So I'll just say, addressing protection concerns in Haiti is essential. There's no way that we can do reconstruction without addressing some of these key protection concerns. Advancing economic and social empowerment, both in our programming and our policies, is critical. And keeping women and girls on the agenda, not just in a superficial way. Get it in the USG strategy for Haiti. Get women at the table, consult with them, get women in leadership positions. There are so many amazing women in Haiti that are ready to kind of take the reins and start making good decisions for that country.
Emily, final word?
So many good questions in so little time. I think I'd love to learn more about the National Human Trafficking Services Hotline. I think that's really excellent. Actually, because we haven't yet fully launched in the kind of, the ad campaign and, posters in every camp, many of the calls we've been getting have been actually through those kind of intermediaries. So Kofaviv has worked. There are a lot of times that Kofaviv has an antagonistic relationship with certain police precincts, and then there's other police precincts that they have a very strong relationship with. I'm not an expert on this, so I don't know the full information, but I know that actually MINUSTA, the UN force, they have a whole section on GBV and protection, and they've been doing lots of trainings, and there have been trainings for the Haitian National Police, and those trainings are so critical and really need to be funded and need to be more extensive because, the amount of stories I've heard for police officers who weren't trained, who when they were told that a rape had happened just said, well, it's not a rape if it's between a husband and a wife, and all sorts of things that are just ludicrous, but happen for a lack of education and a lack of training. So right now for the call center, we are receiving actually calls through medical providers and police, but there certainly can be a lot more of it. In terms of policymakers, I absolutely echo what both said, that the financial independence is so key. It's so critical. You can't separate that from the conversation. And then, as Leora said, women's voices just need to be part of the conversation. And technology can help with that because it really isn't very difficult to Skype and to find translators who can help, translate voices of women who actually live in the camps. And that's possible, and it can happen, and it should be happening more. And I think, first of all, Haiti's not that far away for U.S. government officials who are making policy. But then secondly, there's no reason why a Skype conversation can't happen with people who actually are living that experience. I thought your question around technology for the economic empowerment is spot on. That's not the problem we exist to solve. We just don't have the capacity to do that. But an awesome byproduct of every training we've done is the confidence that happens when a woman says, oh, I don't know how to use that. And then when she does learn how to use it, it translates into further gains. And I think that skill building is so critical and key. And that's where the kind of the empowerment is linked to the skill building, is linked to kind of those financial opportunities. And I mentioned, kind of the entrepreneurial nature before, and I'll say it again, like Haitian women are super entrepreneurial. Like they've made their living for so long in the informal sector. And so often I think it's just about the kind of right kinds of opportunities and skills and so on. And then the men question, I totally agree. I think it's totally critical. And I've been very inspired by the way Kofaviv has deliberately brought men into the fold. And it's kind of amazing to see a 50-year-old Haitian woman sitting in front of 30 young men who are all listening to every single word she has to say as she's talking about the issues the women are facing and how they're going to combat it and so on. And that's been really cool, but there needs to be a lot more of it. And I think they've struggled to have that program funded. It's not our program, it's their program, but programs like that should exist in every single camp, just as there should be women leaders in every single camp. And those two things I think have to go hand in hand, and that accountability along all those lines. Finally, just a quick plug. If you want to know more about these issues and if you want to see some photos by Haitian women, there's an event that is, I think, a very nice complement to this event on November 29th in the morning at U.S. Institute of Peace as part of their Haiti working group. And some of our Haitian partners' photos are going to be on display there. So just because I think this conversation, I really applaud, final word, I guess, I really applaud you all for having us, and I think it should continue. So thank you very much.
Terrific. Well, thank the three of you for your passion and your hard work and your institution's work in this space. It's not easy, and it is challenging, as one of you said right up front. but it is critically important. We do have almost immediate opportunity to continue this conversation here at the center. I'll just flag, you can pick up the details for a session next week, next Tuesday at noon, that focuses on the male dimension with 4 speakers that are focusing on gender-based violence and the role of men and boys in that. So I hope you will pick up the details for that. So on behalf of the Center, why don't you all please join me in thanking our panelists for today's rich discussion.